Chapter 33. All is lost. Raelif, I must go to him. Alcuin's voice was rushed and agonized to Raelif's ears. Declan is alone. He needs nothing, Raelif thought. Declan needs nothing. He looked down the hallway to where Declan was picking something up that was leaning against the wall. Was it a pipe? It almost looked like a sword, but made of jet black metal like the famous Neri blades forged by Vex. But what would one of those be doing lying amongst the refuse in the pedway? It wouldn't, of course. His eyes were playing tricks on him since he now had Illithor on the brain. His blood fizzed like champagne with the thought of seeing the shrouded purple towers full of mystery. And he swore he could almost smell the Underdark down here. His old life pressed against his new one almost tantalizingly. There were rifts nearby, lots of rifts, and maybe lots of Leviathan. He's scouting ahead. We both have an eye on him. It will be all right, Raelif insisted, even though if Declan had really been human, he would have said nothing of the sort. If Finley had been poking his head out like that, he'd have dragged the boy by the collar away from the fight. But Declan needs nothing from me or Aquilin. I know he's capable. I should think otherwise, but he is, Aquilin said with confusion mixed with certainty. He senses that Declan is not like other humans, not human at all. Even without red eyes and white hair, Declan stands out. Even among elves, he would stand out. Yes, I agree, as strange as that sounds. He flashed a smile that he hoped was comforting. Strange? Yes, it should be strange, but it is not. Why is that, Raelif? Not wanting to answer that question at all, Raelif instead tapped Aquilин's closed hand, where sunlight leaked between his tightly clenched fingers. He was right about you not using the Sunstone. That kind of magic will attract everything, I know. As many will be drawn as repulsed by it, and we will have a massive fight on our hands, not to mention that it might put Darkassan in greater danger. Aquilин's lips pulled back from his teeth in frustration. He was well aware of the danger, and yet he had reached for the ultimate weapon against the dark. It is just having two survivors down here with us, and I know, believe me, I understand. I've spelled Finley so much that he likely can't feel his own skin, Raelif realized. In truth, Finley had delighted in the whole process, asking him tons of questions, with each layering of protective magic. It confirmed, once again, that Finley really would make an excellent mage. He was inquisitive, intelligent, and unafraid of experimentation. Aquilin smiled, but that quickly died. I should have done the same to Declan, but he is so independent, and he recoiled when I suggested it on the way here. Raelif wasn't surprised. While Declan might not remember his past, or how the magic that obscured his true nature worked, he clearly sensed that allowing a powerful Arve to cast anything on him or near him was a bad idea. But then again, scouting ahead was a bad idea too. Yet Declan was doing that as if he was compelled to do it. And maybe he is. He is a hunter. I've seen his type in the Kindreth. They are compelled to go deeper and deeper into the darkness, seeking foes in battle. I wonder if his memory is being tugged at just like mine is, by the bitter yet alluring scent of the Underdark, Raelif thought. Part of him wanted to grab Declan by the scruff of the neck and toss him back into the middle of the party with Finley. After all, Declan was supposed to be pretending to be human. But it would have been no use. Declan would not have stayed there, and part of him wondered if he would have been strong enough to keep the young man from doing anything he wanted to do. Could he be Vex's son? Gods, no. Let that not be true. For if that is true, his mind boggled at the possibilities of it. Vex having a son, an heir, was something he never thought his uncle would produce. Too dangerous in so many ways. First, any child of Vex could have his father's magical strength, and the mother's line too, so that child become a threat in his own right. But also there would be those who would seek to use such a child against Vex. If he was fond of the child, to threaten that child's life to get Vex to do what they wanted, or fill that child's head with ambitions to succeed and surpass his father. I would have bet everything on Vex killing any child born of him. Yet Declan lives. What is Declan doing now? Acklin's voice rose in alarm. Raelif's head shot towards where Declan was crouched. The young man straightened and then dashed out of sight around the corner of an intersecting hallway. Acklin stiffened as blue-white light suddenly flashed like lightning strikes in the dark, illuminating the whole end of the hallway. Without a word, both he and the Sun King sprinted after the young man. Raelif put more speed into his legs, using magic to augment his quickness even more than usual. He had to get there ahead of Acklin in case of... What? Declan killing Leviathan? Declan performing magic? This is insane. What is he doing? He's going to reveal it all, and that I will be unmasked and... Gods damn you, Declan Wild. Raelif skidded around the corner just ahead of Acklin. He sent streaks of blue-white lightning to match the color of the already existing magic into the corridor. It was blinding and meant to be. Acklin lifted up an arm to shield his eyes. Raelif, what are you? Sorry, wrong spell, Raelif lied. Gods, did I just say that? He's not going to believe that. But Acklin was more concerned about Declan. He blinked his eyes furiously to adjust them to the blue-white light that remained, illuminating the air ahead of them. Having already cast protection spells against light on himself, he could see perfectly well while the Sun King was blinded. So he was the first to spot Declan. Declan was about 50 feet down the corridor from them. He stood with his back towards them, hood still up and body loose. Dozens of fangs littered the ground around Declan's feet, and more were scattered along the corridor, some still rolling along the floor as if they had just dropped. You fool! You bloody fool! You killed Leviathan! Humans can't bloody do that! And how many? And in 30 seconds? How? Oh! It was then that Raelif saw the long sword held in Declan's right hand. The tip was pointed towards the floor, and blood dripped down the blade. It was a graceful, wicked weapon. The beauty of it and its power was unmistakable. Raelif's mouth went dry as the desert. It was a Neri blade, Ardreth, Sorrow's End. One of the most storied blades that Vex had ever forged. It absorbed the life force of whatever it killed, storing that power in the ruby at the hilt. That stored power could be used later to generate a devastating wave of magic that disintegrated everything in its wake. Vex had wielded it against the Nagazad, an ally turned enemy of the Kindreth. With a single sweep of his blade, he had cut through huge swaths of the Lizard Queen's army. Then he had cut off the Queen's head and lifted it up on the tip of Ardreth. With almost indifference, Vex had shown it to the rest of her people. They dropped to their knees, begging for mercy. But Vex had slaughtered them all anyway. Betrayal was never forgiven. There were no second chances. How does he have Ardreth? His head swung back to where the blade had been just seemingly left leaning against the wall. Who put it there? The Neri blades had been entombed in Illithor. Could a Leviathan have somehow found them and brought one here, just dropped Sorrow's End casually on the floor of the Pedway, where, just coincidentally, a Kindreth who could wield it came upon it? That idea was so absurd he couldn't hold on to it for long. The thought tore apart like wet tissue paper in his mind. Only one person could have left Ardreth here, and he must have done so specifically for Declan to find. Vex, the Night King. He was here. Is he here now? For not just any Kindreth could wield Sorrow's End. That Kindreth would, at a minimum, have to be of the Vex bloodline. But more than that, they would have to be incredibly powerful, otherwise the blade would have devoured them. But Declan stood still and unconcerned, down the hallway none the worse for wear, with his foes dead all around him. Oh, Declan, your bloody family. Of course you are. And what damnation have you brought with you? Declan! Ackland's voice was low and rushed, but loud enough to get the young man's attention. Declan swung around to face them as Ackland raced down the hallway towards him, boots lightly dancing over the fangs. The sword in Declan's right hand was gone. Declan winced and he reached up and touched the back of his neck. Blood weapon. He turned Sorrow's End into a blood weapon. No one but Vex could do that. Or Vex's child. The world spun, and Raelif felt a mixture of nausea and awe. None of this should have been possible. The Night King had a child. That child was a friend. As he saw Aquilin embrace Declan, he amended that to more than a friend of the Sun King. Vex was somewhere near here, close. He had to be close. It's over. All over. Raelif thought weakly. I did not run far enough, and I have been found. Did Lord Declan kill the Leviathan? Oh my! How many fangs there are, Elisha stated. Lord Declan? Finley lifted an eyebrow at her. Yes, I'm not certain of his house. He didn't say, Elisha said uncertainly. She thinks Declan is an Arve. Oh my gods, how insane this is. I suppose that hood hides a variety of sins. She couldn't see his rounded ears. His eyes met Finley's as the young man opened his mouth to correct her. Finley's mouth clicked shut, understanding that it was not a good idea to point out that Declan was supposed to be human. Who would believe that now in any case? And really, what was the point in hiding any longer? It was all going to come out. Worse. Vex must be here, right now, somewhere up ahead. He had to warn everyone. He had to. Remember when Uncle told us yesterday that he had no time for love? Elisha laughed lightly as she tilted her head down the hallway to where Aquilin was running his hands up and down Declan's arms and shoulders, as if to assure himself that Declan was uninjured. What a difference a day makes. A day. It's just been a damn day since we returned to Tyrael. I never thought things could go so wrong so fast. I was just imagining nude picnics and long evenings at the dawn. But it's all over now. All of it. Just the ending must come. Still smiling, Elisha asked, Do you know his family, Raelif? I think it must be a very good one. He's so kind and brave and powerful. Though I am surprised that I haven't seen him at court before. She tapped her chin as she regarded Declan critically. And he dresses a little eccentrically. But that doesn't matter, I suppose. I mean, that can be changed if it has to. But I do need to know his house to make sure that he is well, you know, that he is fittingly royal. Raelif stared at her and thought about bursting out into bitter, hysterical laughter. Declan was royal, all right. He was the Night Prince, heir to the entire Kindrith Empire, son of Zelroth Vex, most powerful of all elves in existence, most powerful of all magic users. If anyone were royal enough to date Aquilin, it would be Declan Wild. But, of course, for all the same reasons, he was the absolute last person that Aquilin could ever be with. Does Vex know about Aquilin's nascent feelings? Is he watching all of this and laughing? He gazed back down the hallway towards the doomed potential lovers. Declan's eyes were covered by those sunglasses, despite the pitch blackness of the location. But then Aquilin gently removed them. Declan blinked as if even this darkness was not dark enough for him, but then smiled shyly up at Aquilin. What did you tell him, Declan? Did you admit killing those Leviathan with a blood weapon? Aquilin's expression says no, but what does he think happened here? That the Leviathan just dropped dead? That they were dead before you ran down the hallway for no reason? Infatuation may be blinding him now, but not that much. Not that much. He heard the thump of Glom's 4 feet as Anaki lumbered up to them. What's going on? Why are we stopping? Helgrim asked as he and Snaglak reached the corner. Glom stuck his head between them and looked hungrily at Snaglak's bare thigh. Fangs! Snaglak's eyes grew huge as he saw all the fangs littering the ground. Not so loud, big man. Finley raised and lowered his hands. There might be living Leviathan nearby. Hope so, Snaglack chortled. Killing fun, Fang's money, money for beer and food. You mean my beer, my food, and then eventually my money, Helgrim chuckled. But then he sobered and looked very hard at Raylif. How did so many Fangs come to be here exactly? Raylif opened his mouth, but no words came out. Declan, Snaglack chortled. Declan Big Boss. Declan kill all Leviathan. Declan let Snaglack have fangs, Fingley? That last was said with a rather pathetic, puppyish look by Snaglack. Raylif had not believed that an orc could look cute, but Snaglack was doing a shockingly good impersonation of that. I'm sure he'd be fine with it, Snaglack, Finley said with a flash of a smile. Everyone here but Elisha knew that Declan was supposed to be human, but as Raylif gazed among them, he realized that none of them believed that. Helgrim was stroking his beard. His amber eyes rested on Raylif, and there was so much unsaid behind that gaze that Raylif nearly turtled in under the weight of it. He knows. He knows Declan isn't human, and he knows... Does he know about me? As the uncomfortable silence lengthened, Helgrim broke it with a hearty, How will you carry them all, Snaglack? I'm counting on your fortune here. Not me carry, Glom, Snaglack explained. I don't think there will be room in your saddlebags. Finley frowned as he compared the amount of fangs in the hallway and the saddlebags on either side of the reptile's scaly back. And Glom will clank. The Leviathan will know we're coming. Glom not carry fangs in saddlebags. Glom carry fangs in belly. Snaglack patted the Naki's head to get his attention and pointed to the nearest fang. Eat, Glom. Eat? Oh, good gods. He really is eating them, Raylif remarked. He poop out when we interior. Much money, much beer and food. Snaglack rubbed his rock-hard stomach. The Narki snuffed up the fangs as it moved down the hallway towards Declan and Aquilin, who were now holding hands while they were pretending to be exchanging the sunglasses. This cannot be. None of this can be. Aquilin's heart is going to shatter. His gaze shifted to Finley, who was also looking at the Sun King and Declan with obvious affection and fondness. Finley seemed to sense Raylif looking at him and turned towards him. The smile Finley threw his way was warm and welcoming. Shared secrets, intimacy. If only Aquilin would react the same way to finding a Kindrith in his midst. But he will not. He cannot. Everything is lost. They are such a handsome couple, Elisha enthused. I really do hope that his family is appropriate. Before you start picking out their wedding colors, we have to rescue your damned brother, Raylif snarled at her. Elisha jerked back at his cutting tone and blinked rapidly. He wanted to scream at her then. Why did that damned Darkassan have to do this? If they weren't here, then what? It would just be another way that Declan's identity and his secret were revealed. Vex was on Earth. Vex was here. All was lost. He shoved past her with Finley on his heels as he headed down the hallway towards Declan and Aquilin, the happy couple to be. Raylif, what's wrong? Finley whispered fiercely. He's here, Raylif growled. What? Who? Finley asked. He spun around, eyes blazing. He knew they were from the way that Finley drew back slightly, but then leaned towards him, determined not to be frightened away. Vex! The word felt ripped from his body. He was bleeding having said it. I would ask how you know this, why you think this, but that doesn't matter. You do, and I believe you. But what do we do? Finley asked. I don't know. That was the truth. I need to tell Aquilin. We need to get out of here as fast as possible. Return to Tyrael where defenses can be set up and... Do you really think he's here with an army? Finley protested. He doesn't need an army. He's enough all by himself, Finley. In all your research, have you not understood just what he is? Raylif heard the hysteria in his own voice and tried to swallow it down. He's a bloody god. I realize that. Finley grasped his hands. No, no, you don't. You can't. You just think he's a powerful mage, but he's nothing like that. And what I do know about him is that he is clever. Yes, he has power and can be ruthless and violent when it suits his purposes. But everything I've read about him indicates that he enjoys finding ways to trick his opponents into making what he's doing just, even if it isn't, Finley interrupted and squeezed his hands to stop them shaking. Meaning? Rayleigh found himself clinging to whatever hope Finley was offering him about Vex's motives, that the Night King wouldn't simply slaughter them all down here in the dark, that murdering us wouldn't appear just. He has no reason to attack us, Finley said, and there's no cover for him to do it, even if he simply wants to. I see what you were saying. Well, except for me, he thinks I am part of a cabal to assassinate him. And if he were to attack me, Aquilin would intercede, and yes, that's possible. But if he were really here after you, then wouldn't he have done more than simply dismissed your glamour in the forest? Finley pressed. When you were divining what happened to Seath and Leisha, he could have done more than he did, right? Yes, that trap could have killed me. Rayleigh forced his breathing to ease. It was true. Vex could have killed him then, but he hadn't. Maybe he's just tormenting me, taking everything from me before he kills me. I believe he must be here for Declan. Clearly there's a connection there at least, Finley argued. You there? Rayleigh thought of Sorrow's End being likely a tattoo on Declan's back right at that moment. Sorrow's End, a blood weapon. Good gods! Declan is too strong. Vex has to kill him. He can't risk having him out there. The point is that I highly doubt that he's here to simply kill or attack you, or the RFA generally. He has no justification for doing that. Finley suddenly stopped talking. His eyes were distant. Clearly something had occurred to him. But if Darkassan were to go to Illithor and take something, Finley's head shot up. That would give him a reason. Yes, it would. A yawning pit opened in Rayleigh's stomach. We have to stop Darkassan. We have to. We can't run. We must do what we came here to do. Rescue Darkassan and stop him from taking anything from Illithor. Finley nodded vigorously. Because even if Vex doesn't intend to act violently towards the RFA all along, Darkassan's thieving might force his hand to respond that way. A lesson for others. Yes. A chill swept through him. Even if Vex didn't want to attack the RFA now, if an RFA prince were to loot Illithor to steal even one measly weapon, that would be enough for Vex to have to respond. Just like the Nazgûl, none would survive the betrayal so that no other ally would think about it. And besides, even if you told Aquilin that Vex was here, do you think he would just abandon his nephew? No, he would just insist that we all leave and he go after Darkassan alone, Finley added. He cupped Finley's face and kissed his forehead fiercely, which left Finley blinking and staring at him. You are bloody brilliant. I just had to kiss that big brain of yours, he added in explanation. Finley lifted an eyebrow. So, what will you say to Aquilin? I must tell him. Finley, I've lied to him about everything. Rayleigh's voice was wretched. Everything. You had your reasons, Finley suggested. And he had. The fact that Aquilin would never have let him open his mouth to speak before killing him was the number one reason. And it wouldn't have been just the Sun King. A Kindrith on the Lyran plain in the noble court? It won't matter. He'll never forgive me. Suddenly Rayleigh wished Vex was here to kill him. All is lost. He's your best friend. Didn't you hear what I said? I lied to him about everything. Finley. Then that's all the more reason that you need to tell him carefully about everything, which you cannot do in the Ped way, Finley pointed out. Rayleigh clutched onto that. I can't. You're right. I can't tell him now. I don't want to tell him ever. Tell him what you found about Seath and Leisha's deaths, and that a powerful Kindrith is here. Tell him your fears about Darkassan's actions, and how they might be taken by that Kindrith. You can even tell him, here Finley swallowed, about your fears that it is Vex. Yes, I can do that. I should do that, he hastened to add. Those are the facts he needs. The rest can wait, Finley suggested. For when you're not in dire danger in a dark pit surrounded by enemies. Rayliff let out a soft laugh. Yes, exactly. I'll tell Aquilin everything else later. But it's not just my secret, Finley. There's Declan to consider. Finley nodded. All the more reason not to bring in extraneous information he doesn't need to know now. We need a plan for all of this. Right. Clever boy. He touched Finley's cheek again. Finley froze for a moment, but then leaned against his hand. Yes, well, everyone is wondering what's happening with us. And he was right again. Alasha was staring at them. Helgrim grimly stroked his beard while regarding them. Snaglak was urging Glum to eat faster, so he wasn't paying any attention to them. And on the other side of them, Aquilin and Declan were approaching, hand in hand. Despite everything that Finley had said, despite the fact that he wasn't going to admit it all now, or maybe ever, his mind whispered, he couldn't get the thought out of his head that all is lost. The Night Prince is a book series, audiobook series, and weekly podcast now, but it started in 2023 as simply a written serial story on my own subscription website, wraithbrain.com. This is how everything starts. First, I pitched the general idea to my members, like what if humans and high fantasy beings like elves and fairies had to exist together on our Earth after a catastrophe? Then I write and post chapters directly for my private members. They get to read everything as soon as I write it, and they also get to tell me exactly what they think. There's a comment section at the end of every single chapter. When I get about 50 chapters into the story, I know much more about the characters, world, and storyline. This lets me go back to the beginning and revise those early chapters to reflect what's going to happen later. You know, foreshadowing, red herrings, and all those author tricks. Only then will I consider putting it out as books, audiobooks, and releasing it to the general public. In general, members are 50 chapters or more ahead of the public podcast. In this case, members are almost 100 chapters ahead in the written story and more than 80 chapters ahead in the audio story. You can, of course, wait every week for the next episode, but you can also join my subscription for a month and get all the available chapters of The Night Prince right now. I'll post a link in the notes.